What's up, guys? The Grateful Dead t-shirts rock. A huge shout out to Evan Nicely, who designed those on a Grateful Dead night for VCU. Chris Kowalczyk just told me that Evan Nicely designed these t-shirts. Also, shout out to Peppa's director extraordinaire, Ryan Capacci, who grabbed me a shirt during the game today, because they're awesome. But VCU lost to New Mexico, 81-78. Lobos rained on the parade. It was a great atmosphere here tonight. Max Scholga was in the house. A-10 Commissioner Bernadette McGlade was here. Phil Martelli Sr. was here. This was the marquee non-conference game at the Siegel Center for VCU. And so it is really tough to lose it in the way that they did. Rams led for 21-17. We had 10 lead changes and 9 ties for the neutral observer. This was an outstanding basketball game. And I'm going to sit down real quick because I'm going to have to go through my play-by-play and get to the final sequences of this game because we have to start at the end here. So New Mexico outscored VCU 40-32 in the second half. Rams led 46-41 at halftime. And it's really those final sequences that are the crux of the game here, right? Because New Mexico goes on, what is it? I think a 12-0 run midway through the second half to build a 75-65 lead. That was capped when, Chris Howell hit a couple of free throws. They went up by 10. This place was silent. And it was a stunned silence because VCU had controlled this game for large stretches. What was their biggest lead? By 9, midway through the first half. Again, felt like Rams were in control for a long time there, and then it just slipped away in the second half. Phil Martelli said that he's going to be, tossing and turning in bed tonight trying to figure out why they came out as flat as they did in the second half because New Mexico flipped the momentum pretty quick. But then VCU got back in the game, and it felt like they had all the momentum, right? So at 7:55 at the under 8 timeout, it's 75-65 Lobos. There's a stunned silence in here. And then VCU goes on a 10-0 run of its own, capped by a Michael Bell catch-and-shoot tray in the left corner, which was wild. He played a really good game. He's getting more confidence in the outside shooting. That made it 75-73 with 5:33 to go. And then Zach Joachim turnaround hook in the post. It's 75 up with 4:40 to play. And at that point, it's all to play for. Again, it felt like VCU had all the momentum. And then Jake freaking Hall, who is the story of this game from an individual standpoint, the freshman guard for New Mexico, who I knew was really good coming into this game. I didn't know it was that good. It's a career high for him. 24 points, 9 of 15 from the floor, 5 of 7 from 3. Rams could not deal with him. He was outstanding. He gets free on the left wing off of a bit of a broken possession. It was bad luck for VCU. I mean, they missed defensive assignments and certainly could have done better on him throughout the night. But on that one, I think it was mostly bad luck because there's a loose ball down in this corner over here. And I think Nick Lewis, who was guarding Hall in that sequence, dove for it. He and Michael Bell both went for it. New Mexico got the loose ball. All of a sudden, Hall's wide open on the left wing, hits the 3. That's the backbreaker. It's 78-75 Lobos with 2:30 to play. After a couple free throws, it's 80-75. And then, Zach Joachim fights his way to the line, makes one. Brandon Jennings, offensive rebound. Brandon Jennings was outstanding tonight. We'll get to him in a second. And then Nick Lewis, tough drive and finish off glass. That makes it 80-78 with 1:05 to play. And the game kind of stood still at that score line for a while there because VCU got some stops. I think they had 3 possessions where it was 80-78, and they had a chance to either tie or take the lead in this game. Inbound to Jokovic on the baseline near the right corner. He passed to the middle, and Phil talked about this in the post-game presser. They were obviously trying to play through Jokovic in those late-game scenarios, and that's a whole conversation that I'll write about tomorrow, about who kind of the alpha for this team is in those late-game scenarios when you need a bucket. My expectation would have been that it was Jadrian Tracy, because for me, he's the guy who's, been on an Oregon team that won NCAA tournament games, and has the most experience in terms of college basketball games, high leverage situations out of anybody in this team, but he wasn't on the floor for some of those last possessions. The inbound to Jokovic, he bounces to the middle of the court, and Nick, he was looking for Nick Lewis to cut. Nick Lewis didn't cut. We asked Phil about those sequences there late. Here's his quote: "We were trying to run some action. Honestly, I don't know. We uncharacteristically were throwing the ball to Lazar, anticipating a play. Lazar was looking for Nick to slip. It was open. Nick didn't see it. It's okay, but we can't just throw the ball there. We have to be sure in those situations and execute better." And that's what it came down to for VCU in crunch time. They didn't execute. But VCU got 3 cracks at it. I think there was a great defensive play by Nick Lewis in the corner on a New Mexico inbounds to get a steal, and then New Mexico missed a free throw too. It was the front end of a 1-on-1 that would have put them up 3, and the second could have put them up 4, and they missed the front end. So they gave VCU 3 tries at it. On the last one, Djokovic had the ball in the post, no cigar, turnover. Rams had to foul and stop the clock. New Mexico makes the first, misses the second. Terrence Hill heave at the buzzer. Doesn't get there, and VCU loses 81-78. There's a lot that we could talk about in those late game moments, right? I mean, let's give Brandon Jennings his flowers first, because he's 9-9 at the free throw line, 2 of 8 from the field. So it's not like he filled it up, shooting wise offensively, but 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks, 9 over on the plus minus. Vintage Brandon Jennings performance, doing a little bit of everything. He was VCU's best player tonight. And Terrence Hill, man, was 2 of 4 from the floor. Those were all 3-point attempts. He made 2 of them, but he only played 16-15. I think that the staff wants more from him on the defensive end, and that's what's keeping him off the floor in crunch time like that. But I was saying to Adam Epstein sitting next to me, on the scores table here, they've got to get Terrence a look. New Mexico was face guarding him. They were, and Phil talked about that in the post-game presser, and he mentioned it earlier this week that he's going to start to see more of that with how well he's shooting the ball. And obviously, Phil said they could hear New Mexico's communication all the time about Terrence. So don't let him get free, face guard him, keep him off the 3-point line. And they did everything they could to try and keep him from getting open looks outside. He ended up with 9 points. Like I said, only the 4 attempts from the floor. You'd really like to get him more volume. Phil said they're going to have to, run more off-ball action for him, get him setting screens, try and get some switches and mismatches to get him looks, because they didn't do enough of that late in this game. That's your best shooter. And New Mexico was able to do that with Hall a great deal. And he's a freshman, right? And so, that's certainly not an excuse that you can use if you're VCU. Obviously, Nick Lewis is a freshman too. Had some miscues late there. But it just looks like a VCU team that hadn't quite been in these moments together yet. From a cohesion standpoint, Phil talked about it. They run endgame sequences all the time in practice. They did it all summer where they'd put 3:40 on the clock. It's a tie game. Here's what it's going to look like. And that just didn't come to fruition today. They were sloppy in those last few possessions, some really bad turnovers. They had every chance to tie or win this game in the latter stages there. VCU 37-33 edge on the board, 17 offensive rebounds, 16 second chance points. And 16 second chance points is great, but when you get 17 offensive boards, Phil said they got to capitalize on that better. Djokovic, 13 points, 5 rebounds. Overall, he was good, but not in those, late moments. He ended up 4 of 12 from the field. People will have a lot of questions about trying to run the offense through him, through your big and crunch time there, and who you'd like to be getting those shots. Barry Evans, 8 points, 8 rebounds. VCU played really well for a half, and they didn't put together a full 40 minutes. They were bad in that second half. New Mexico deserved to win this game. They were the better team. Hall was outstanding. JT Rock, their big, who only played 18-12. I'm mentioning him because he's 18 over on the plus minus, hit a huge 3 in that second half. He's like 7-1. I think his presence down low and rim protection really messed with VCU offensively. I think did he have the key block on? Yeah, he had 2 blocks, and I want to say one of them was on the Jadrian Tracy drive in those last few minutes. I'm trying to find out where that was in my notes here. It's somewhere. There, we ain't got time to go through all of it. We're already at 9 minutes for this on the horn here. But Jadrian was blocked by Rock, and I think he really altered a lot of VCU shots at the rim, particularly in that second half. Dayton Albury, their guard, is incredibly fast. He ended up with 14 points, was really pushing the pace and attacking the rim, and when you don't stay in front of him, he's already at the rim by the time you blink, and that happened a few times tonight. VCU 7 of 26 from outside. Phil Martelli talked about it this week. This is a New Mexico team that's going to pack the paint defensively and dare you to beat them from outside, and VCU didn't make enough shots on the perimeter tonight. That's 26.9%. They ended up 24 of 62 from the floor, 38.7% for the game. You score 78 points, but especially in those latter stages, the offensive execution was not good enough. VCU 12 turnovers. Overall, I don't think they were sloppy with the ball, but they were sloppy with the ball in the moments when it mattered the most, and that cost them in what is not a back-breaking loss, but it's a big loss in terms of them trying to build an at-large NCAA tournament resume. You're going to have to win 14, 15 games in the A10 at this point, I think, to get back in that at-large conversation. I was talking to Robbie Robinson earlier today, and I think the one big opportunity that they have is when they go to St. Louis, who's number 30 in the net right now. So that could be the type of game where you'd have an opportunity to make up for a loss. Look, New Mexico's a really good team. They blew out Santa Clara, who's a really good team, on Saturday. They were obviously playing with confidence, came into this game with confidence, and they showed it in that second half, especially in that run to go up 10, which really silenced this place. So yeah, tough loss for VCU. I think a team, a young coach, and a team with still a lot of cohesion to build in those crunch time moments. They'll learn from it. They'll build off of it, and try and clean up the execution in the key moments. If they run into other close games like this against good teams later on in their seasons, they're going to have to be able to take those lessons and build off of them. So New Mexico 81, VCU 78. I'm Zach Joachim. This is On the Horn. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I wanted to have some Grateful Dead lyrics to throw at y'all. I'm honestly not I'm not a Deadhead. I appreciate the Grateful Dead a great deal. They're awesome. What a long, strange trip it's been. Doesn't really work here. I got some of the lyrics into the story. I'm not sure if they really worked, but I tried, guys, because I felt obligated to do it on Grateful Dead night. I'm Zach Joachim. This is On the Horn. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I'll see y'all Monday against Niagara.